Now that James Gunn has entered the leading role of the DC universe, we're entering a new golden age of DC movies. And with that, we're about to get a new Batman movie soon. And when they announced that new Batman movie, they also announced that Damian Wayne is going to be the main Robin of that Batman universe, you know? And with that, I have heard a lot of different opinions about it. And I'll be honest, at first I was a little bit skeptical about having Damian Wayne be the main Robin of this new universe, you know, because I'm not the biggest fan of Damian Wayne. Nightwing is always going to be my favorite Robin, I mean, Dick Grayson, you know what I mean. But I have seen some very compelling arguments about how Damian Wayne is the best option, not only the best option, the only option as the main Robin of the DC universe. And I came to agree with those options. So I wrote down here 8 reasons why Damian Wayne is the best option and the only option to be the main Robin. Let's get right into it. The first reason is because Damian Wayne saves a lot of time without sacrificing the legacy of the Robins. I think one of the biggest challenges of launching a new cinematic universe is time. Let's say the DCU starts with Dick Grayson as Robin. It would take a lot of time. It would take 2 or 3 movies just to get through Dick Grayson, to then go to Jason Todd and then go to Tim Drake, before finally getting to Damian Wayne. That's just not practical. It will take over 10 years to be introduced to Damian Wayne. Starting with Damian, it allows this DCU to skip years of setup without skipping the emotional weight. The history of the Robins will still exist, but instead of building it in real time, the audience inherits it over time, and it keeps the universe moving forward while still respecting the past. Also, we can still get the scenes and history of the past Robins via flashbacks or different projects that are like prequels, because James Gunn has said that it's not going to be a linear storytelling. They're going to have prequel storytellings as well. So we could get animated or live action projects that shows Batman with Dick Grayson as Robin or Batman and Jason Todd. Now, point number 2. The DCAU is the perfect blueprint. If you have never watched the DC animated universe, do yourself a favor. Shut down this video and go watch those movies. Absolutely peak. Starting from Flashpoint up to, I think it's Justice League Apocalypse. I cannot tell you enough how good those movies are. I love those movies with a passion. I try putting everyone that I know onto those movies. And in those movies, when we get introduced to Batman, we get introduced to Batman in the sense that he's meeting Damian Wayne for the first time. And in that universe, when we meet all these characters, Dick Grayson is already Nightwing. He's already leading the Titans. And it works really well. They do a really good job on that. It introduces a well-established but still relatively young Batman, which works really well for the DC universe because Batman needs to be around the same age as Superman. And with that, we get to explore Damian and Batman, obviously. We get to explore Damian and Nightwing, just like in the animated universe, which we get some really cool scenes of Nightwing and Damian together for the Batman universe in that sense. It works really well in the animated universe, and if they just copy what works into live action, chef's kiss. Alright, point number 3. Batman and Superman being the same age, it strengthens this choice. What I mean by that? By the time DCU's Batman movie comes out, Superman will likely be around year 6 of being Superman in that universe, so it means that Batman can actually be placed around year 8 or 9 of his career as Batman, which works perfectly. Bruce becoming Batman at 20 or 21 has worked in the comics, and it makes sense given his training. So let's say Batman is in year 8 or 9, that puts Bruce Wayne, year 8 or 9 of being Batman, that puts Bruce Wayne in his late 20s to early 30s, which means Batman and Superman are essentially around the same age, right? So this matters because James Gunn has said that he wants Batman and Superman to be best friends, not rivals or mentor and student dynamic. He wants to be in the comics where they're around the same age and making them peers, keeping their friendship natural, being best friends, and avoiding that grumpy older Batman trope, which I'm so tired of it. Thank God he's not going to do that. They're 2 heroes of the same generation who took very different paths, and they're going to work perfectly because we need them to be the same age, but we need Batman to have been a superhero longer than Superman. And Batman being in his late 20s, early 30s with a kid and Robins, while Superman is like year 6 to being Superman, works incredibly well. Number 4, a younger Batman makes Damian Wayne more compelling. Why do I think that? I think a Batman in his late 20s is a Batman that is experienced but not burnt out from being Batman. He's still growing emotionally, as Batman. And it feels believable as a father struggling to connect with Damian. Bruce Wayne is not going to be a detached veteran of being a superhero. He's still a man figuring out himself while still being forced into being a father way earlier than expected. The same thing with Dick Grayson, where in this storyline, in this timeline, he became a father to Dick Grayson in his early 20s, which it makes sense where, like, you know, where he's still more brooding, and we get those themes of Nightwing saying, oh man, in the early years, Bruce was like really dark. And it makes sense why Nightwing, Dick Grayson came in and helped Bruce see the light and balance him out. And the tension of Bruce Wayne being still figuring things out as a father, it adds to the depth of the both characters that makes Damian's presence feel more earned compared to being feel rushed. Reason number 5, Nightwing fits perfectly in this era. If Bruce Wayne starts young, Dick Grayson became Robin around 12 or 13, which transitions him into Nightwing by his late teens or early 20s, and he will be obviously already be established as Nightwing by the time Damian Wayne enters the picture, which I mentioned before. This keeps Nightwing close in age to Batman and Superman, obviously kind of close in age, still a good amount younger, but the idea of this shared generation of heroes, not multiple disconnected eras, if that makes sense. So he's not like way far behind in age from Batman and Superman. He still be closer to them, and he can relate more to them compared to other heroes. Plus, we're still gonna get the dynamic of Nightwing and Batman's father and son relationship, but also Nightwing and Superman, as Superman's more like a uncle to Nightwing, you know, that really good relationship. I really want to see that in the live action. Reason number 6, delaying Jason Todd return makes it hit a lot harder. So starting with Damian means also delaying when we get to see Jason Todd, which I think is a good thing. We're going to build that tension of Jason Todd coming back while we see Nightwing and Damian Wayne. It gives more time to develop the storytelling with Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, and Damian, and it makes the future movie of Under the Red Hood adaptation so much more impactful. I cannot wait to see a live action of that. Hopefully we get it. And by the time Jason comes back, the audience is going to be feeling the weight of his absence. There's going to be a lot of, mentions here and there about Jason, a lot more insecurities in the sense of Batman still like wanting another Robin or things like that maybe. And by the time Jason does come back, he's gonna feel that the anger of being replaced by Tim and Damian, and then all being like a quote unquote a happy family without him. Also, something that I think will work really well with Bruce Wayne being a younger Batman, when let's say starting out with being Batman in his early 20s. And I saw a YouTuber by the name of Kate the God Talks. He made a really good point that of adapting the dynamic duo comic book storyline, where Dick Grayson and Jason Todd overlaps being Robin together. So Dick Grayson becomes Robin first, obviously, let's say like a year of being Robin by himself. And instead of him leaving and then Bruce Wayne taking in Jason Todd to become Robin, he takes in Jason Todd while Dick Grayson is still Robin, and they're Robins at the same time, right? So think how that will work really well, because it'll save time as well in the aspect of storytelling, but also it'll create a bigger bond between Dick Grayson and Jason Todd as brothers, but also it'll create a bigger rivalry between the two of that competition of Jason Todd feeling like he can never live up to the original Robin, even though it's only he was only a Robin a year longer than him. He feels like Dick Grayson is a better Robin, and that Bruce Wayne prefers Dick Grayson as Robin, and he'll let Dick go on patrols and do things on his own. He won't let Jason do the same. And he feels like he can never live up, can never catch up to Dick Grayson as a Robin. And it'll create that tension between the two of them by the time he comes back as Red Hood. Number 7, it'll be condensing the timeline without losing any emotional weight. By what I just mentioned, condensing the timeline by having Dick Grayson and Jason Todd being Robin at the same time, it's gonna save a lot of time, and it's gonna just make the timeline make more sense when it comes to Batman and Superman being the same age, and Batman's age making sense while having all these Robins. Number 8, Damian represents the legacy era of Batman. Starting with Damian isn't about skipping the past and not like it never happened. It's about embracing the legacy of the Robins. Damian is the living result of everything Batman has built, his victories, his failures, and his family. By introducing Damian first, the DCU is signaling that this universe is about to grow and have consequences and inheritance, not just the origin stories. You know, I feel like a lot of fans are kind of feel a little burnt out from just seeing the same origin stories over and over again. I think we, as an audience, getting dropped into an existing universe, we don't need to see every single origin story. It feels more real. It feels like we're in the universe compared to just watching it. These are all my 8 reasons why I think Damian Wayne is the best and the only option for the main Robin in the DC universe. If you watch all the way through, I really appreciate it. Give a like, subscribe to my channel to help out. I can keep making these videos, and I'll see you in the next